Jill, would you like to elaborate on Ian's remarks and tie it into your own experience?
You know, the word that stands out in what you say is fans. Fans, audience, consumers. To me, those are the people who I want to reach. And I come from a traditional television background where the industry is about broadcasters and advertisers, and the storyteller and the audience have somehow become kind of tangential to that industry. And when I started telling stories on the web, the first thing I discovered was, oh my God, the audience is there and they can talk to me. And so I've been creating and bringing characters to life through the social media, through their blogs, through their Twitter, through their Facebook activity. And the audience is interacting with them and helping to shape the stories and responding to them and questioning their moves and almost acting like they're their friends. And to me, that was like very exciting as a creator. And I felt that there was the same kind of hunger on the other side from the audience to really interact with content and to be part of it. And the most recent thing I did was, in honor of Social Media Week, I ran a live comedy soap opera on Twitter for 5 days, which was like, how do you do it and what does it look like? But what was really interesting in terms of when we come back to financing it, well, where did the money come from? Actually, it was crowdsourced. Everybody who worked on it just volunteered. And so there were 13 writers in all in different cities and different countries working on it. Guy in New York I've never met to this day, built a website for it. There was a volunteer producer. The actors volunteered. And we created this incredible experience. So that would be...
Do you find, John, that these definitions and examples of success resonate with your own experience?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, just we're kind of talking about the fans and the feedback, and as well as the brand. And so those are two things that I'm thinking about right now. And I'll sort of try and tie them together here. And so we recently just, you know, from a fans and feedback perspective, we recently just, you know, released a World Cup app. And this was, you know, we wanted this to be, you know, a good signature sporting app for us. And just to give you some figures on that, with feedback, usually feedback is negative. Mm-hmm. And we get about 400 hits on feedback for our Time Magazine app on BlackBerry a month. And in the first 3 days, we received over 1,000 hits on feedback in 3 days versus 30. And this was our World Cup app. And out of the 1,000, there was about 98% of it, roughly, was positive feedback. Nice. And for us, that was the initial acceptance of what we're doing is right, and this is very successful. And so we're obviously doing something. So we had a strategy meeting. We said we're doing something right. We're providing an engaging experience to the user, because it's not necessarily just about us. It's about what everybody out there is on their phones, on their mobile phones. And so you need to take that into account. And you know, coupled with that, it's how prominent is our brand right now globally. We're gaining notoriety. Excuse me. And so we just partnered up with a major sports network in the United States, and for the first time, we didn't have a co-branding issue where when we powered up the mobile app, we wanted it to say "Powered by Polar Mobile." We've never been able to do that properly because with some of these major networks, it's against their license to actually do that. Mm-hmm. And for the first time, they approached us and said, "We'd like to have Powered by Polar Mobile on our app because it shows that we're not a custom house and it shows that we're powered by a reputable brand." So those are really two examples of, you know, we're really achieving success here. Is that, again, it's not just about the revenue; it's about how accepted are we? Are we, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, and it seems clear that success is both clearly reputationally, but as your example shows, also an issue of integrating and responding to feedback that then engenders that type of reputational success.
Absolutely.
Raja, A, does this fit in terms of your experience? But B, given last night's dinner, how radical you were, how almost vanguardist in terms of your political, technological approach. How does success play a role in terms of your work and the goals of your company?
You know, I had a company in the late 90s called Snap Media. We built a lot of websites, and we did this, you know, one of the sites we built, and I think I saw Andrew here help fund it. A site called Riverdale. You guys might remember that CBC show. It was like, we built this 3D world where you can walk in behind the scenes of the on the set of the soap opera, and you encountered another soap opera that was taking place between the crew of the show, and it was one of the first uses of online video. And it was like the coolest site you've ever seen. We won every award on the planet. We won the most innovative, one of the top 10 most innovative websites in the world at the Imagina conference in France. We did all this stuff. We won Geminis, I don't know, all kinds of crazy stuff. And the 6 people that use the site loved it. It was a colossal failure. I'm sorry, so maybe I'm the jaded one here. I no longer get satisfaction from good feedback and a nice looking site and a nice looking product. Like, I want to see the numbers. And to me, and I wasn't kidding earlier, I'm big in Canada. I mean, if that's our goal as a Canadian content industry, is to get, you know, all the niche, you know, content, people who might like our content in Canada engaged in it, well, you know, you go home, apply for your funding, hope you get subsidized, and you'll retire with your 10% producer fee. I mean, I'm not interested in that model. For me, you have to be thinking bigger. And I think it's the biggest problem in Canada and the media industry is that people think small. And it's the biggest complaint, by the way, of US VCs and other investors and other when they come to Canada and they get presented business ideas and business plans, is like they're all small. It's like, why can't we be global leaders? We have the education, we have the schools, we have the talent pools, we have the location to be world leaders. You know, my companies have raised in the last 4 years $75 million of venture capital. We didn't do that by having a Canadian flag waving kind of story. I mean, but it is Canadian and it is flag waving. It's about creating content in Canada and bringing it to the rest of the world.
But clearly, the base is Canadian, but the ambitions are global.
Have to be, if you, for success, for me. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, I can go to bed at night feeling better that I did something cool, but like I said, I'm over that.
It's a perfect segue to a company called Maple.
I was going to say, what's your response to that, Tara? Go big or go home? Is that an accurate
I absolutely agree with that, 100%. I think, you know, our DNA, obviously our company is called MapleCore, is our parent company. We're branded Maple Music Recording. So we have a very strong patriotic branding, but in no way has our business plan ever been limited to Canada or been about success exclusively with Canadian artists. You know, our biggest revenue generator for the business is Taylor Swift, who we have the rights to in Canada, and we are very proud of that. We worked with Radiohead in Canada. So, you know, we didn't get those opportunities by focusing all of our business development in Canada, obviously. So, you know, I do agree with Raja, actually, about that.
But, you know, having said
let's give Sarah a chance. Let's not get too bogged down this early.
I think our industry is in slightly different spot, and you maybe got some of that from Virginia this morning, and actually what Carolyn was saying earlier, and that is that we've gone from being, you know, print, paper, bind out into the world and having to digitize. That's not just on the social networking and marketing front, which, you know, in our company, at least in the Canadian publishing houses, we were sort of at the vanguard of doing all of these things kind of early on. And then, but the real deal really right now in our business in terms of revenue and what that revenue model is going to be is in fact creating digital books and digital product. And so you're right, we're running like 2 streams at the same time. We're still very much in the P book, the published book, but we're producing at the same time ebooks. And there are a lot of issues around creating ebooks and who we're creating them for and how we're getting them into the marketplace. And for me right now, that is our whole concentration. We've done the social networking. We've got a dedicated person. We're doing outreach globally for what we produce. But then it's this other thing that's coming along, which is how are people reading and taking books on and into their lives. And that has not just affected the actual print books that you're going to read, but how the data around the books you produce gets into the world. So in our shop, we have this huge operation going on to digitize almost every part of our processes, which is to say, when an editor decides to write copy about a book, that has to go into the, you know, major brain of the computer because it's going to get spit out in 5 or 6 different ways to all kinds of different data aggregators around the world so that people know what it is that we're producing. And for us, it's definitely a global endeavor. It's definitely not just the Canadian market because we can't survive in just the Canadian market. There's no way, you know, an independent Canadian publishing house can actually, you know, beyond subsidy, get along here. You have to produce and own the properties and sell them into the world. And now the whole conversation is, how are we selling them beyond our own borders and into the world?
Now, Nathan, I'm certainly curious for your perspective on the go big or go home, but at the same time, I'd be curious how you might link that to, say, the need for agility and the need to be really nimble and flexible in an always changing marketplace.
I think the reason why you're seeing such a kind of surging power of independent companies in the video game industry is that agility, is that malleability, is the basically the fact that a new platform can start up and within a small amount of time you can have a small 5-person game going on that platform because you don't have any ties to this big business. I think it's funny because I think a lot of times you're looking at the kind of like go big, I want to make money, I want to, you know, I want to put my kids in private school or whatever, and I want to make something that's independently created, fulfilling, you know, powerful, move the medium forward. In a lot of cases, we look at that exclusively. Like one is usually in conflict with the other. But I think what's happening, at least in video games right now, is the two are actually very well aligned. We're more financially successful making games we care about than we are making games for American Idol. And we've done that. And we've made way more money making our own stuff because the consumers are more educated. The consumers are looking for experiences that are unique, interesting, fun. And in most cases, that doesn't come through regurgitating a brand that you can play with a controller. So what I think has really been interesting about video games, specifically over the past 3 years, is you've seen 1, 2, 3, 4-person shops from Toronto, coincidentally, putting games out and them being kind of the premier games on a platform. So they're going global, they're going huge, they're making, I mean, compared to their budget, they're blowing the living crap out of most other games out of the water. But at the same time, they're games that are made because the people want to make them. They're not out there to be commercial. They're not out there to be, you know, the next Modern Warfare 2 $1 billion launch in a day. I don't think any of us should really care about that kind of stuff. Sure, it's fun to play. Sure, it's wonderful to, you know, they're enjoyable. But there's a very small number of companies in Canada that can actually even produce stuff of that caliber. You need 200 people, and in Ontario we have a few studios that can do it. And power to them because I think they do it better than most. And that's another thing that Ontario should be super proud of, is even the few large studios that we have are actually premier caliber studios. But I think the most interesting thing that's happening specifically in Toronto is that there's this mass kind of like consortium of small independent people making things that are extremely creative and out on the edge and actually making a lot of money doing it.
Right on. So allow me then to ask a final follow-up question, and please try to make it a brief answer so that we can, I mean, people haven't done very many creative interventions to deserve the mic, but I'm curious, based on the legitimate diversity of those answers, what I'd like you to do is and some of you I've already done this with, so you may have a bit of warning, but it's a play off the old 3 things, pick 2. So money, power, respect. Pick 2 of them and tell me why.
I have to go first?
Yes.
Wait, can I just
Yeah. An amendment?
Side note.
Okay.
I would just say maybe instead of picking 2 like in a future way, we could pick the 2 that we feel define why we were invited to be on this panel. Excellent.
So you can have either. You can either use it as a definition of why you're here, or you can do it as more a future intent, where you'd like to be. That was perhaps enough time, Ian, for you to think about your very quick answer. So again, again, as Little Kim would say, money, power, respect, but pick 2, and why?
Power and respect. The money will come.
Well said. Jill?
I got to echo that. It's exactly the same for me. I think the money will follow the power and the respect.
John?
So I'll put a sort of a small spin on it quickly. I'm going to say money and respect. I'm going to say money because, you know, to keep your head above water, you need the money to survive. It's business, at least for us. So that has to come. It's not about the big dollars, but at least, you know, you need some money to sustain a business. And then hands down respect, because I think once you get respect and you have a little bit of money to work with, then your power will come after that.
Right on. Raja?